Namaste. We are very fortunate enough to host SriramBalasubramanian ji. He is a famous economist and author. He is the author of Thermonomics and Cartelenomics. He is with us today in this Mahakumbh Kumbh Pandal. Thank you, sir. You are here with your father. Definitely everybody visiting Mahakumbh and everybody wants to take a dip into the Ganga and Sangam. You are also here for that purpose. You are a man of figure. Kumbh is having so many figures. Being an economist, I'll request you, what is your point of view about this Mahakumbh expenditure, about this Mahakumbh Mela, this grandeur of this Mahakumbh and everything. So, sir, my first question about the figures of Mahakumbh.
Namaste. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be part of this grand festival, which happens once in 144 years. And it's been so brilliantly organized by the UP government, Yogi Adityanath ji, and this entire setup here by yourself, the Think India Council. And of course, Saurabh's Think India Council has done a lot of work in promoting Indic and Dharmic thought much before others. And I'm glad to be associated, and be part of this discussion. So the Kumbh economy is something very unique. I've spoken a lot about this. I've argued that this is thermonomics in action. The UP government has spent about 5,000. The total amount of expenditure.
7,500 crore, I guess.
Yeah, 7,500 crore is the total amount. About 2,100 crores from the central government is a grant. The rest of it comes from the UP government. But the estimates of the revenue are almost 2.5 lakh crores.
Yesterday I was going through a figure somewhere. It was printed in, I think, Economic Times. Some 3 lakh crore is the figure. And the total flight which landed to Prayagraj airport in this 1 month only, it's beyond 2,900 flight only. And more than 2.5 lakh people traveled through air in this 1 month only.
Right. So that estimate of 2.5 lakh crores, if you look at it, it's almost 1/10 of 10% of the state's GDP for the entire year last year. Last year, Uttar Pradesh state GDP was 25.8 lakh crores. So, assuming a lot of this revenue generated goes into the GDP measurement as well, even if it is 5%, it's still a huge number. And then there is a lot of what I call direct economies of scale in terms of employment. There's 10 lakh job opportunities created. You have these metro lines being built. You have entire infrastructure being built. These are all direct economies of scale. And then you have indirect economies of scale, which is basically what happens because of the event. You have tourism developing, you have infrastructure developing, you have aviation developing, and you have a lot of these indirect economies of scale which also there. And most importantly, it also gives the bureaucrats a specific timeline, say 40-45 days.
Yeah, that is a challenge
to implement such an event. And because everyone is talking about this, so there's a lot of pressure for them to deliver. So in a complex democracy such as India, it just helps you to execute such a big event.
So civic management issues are here.
Correct. So these are, I would say, some main elements of the economic angle of the Kumbh, at least this time.
Till date, as per the government figure, more than 50 lakh people dipped into the Ganga, Sangam Snan. So roughly, if you'll take the figure of 50 lakh people who visited this Prayagraj Mahakumbh Mela and just multiply it with on an average, if suppose out of 50 lakh people, if 30 lakh people are from the community of middle class, so roughly they spent somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 rupees. So just multiply it and just and guess about the UPI transaction. And the rest of the 20 lakh people who might have spent somewhere around 40,000 to 50,000 rupees in cottage, in airfare, in railway, first class, second class, third class, AC, and some other amenities and utilities during this Mahakumbh. So, what's your point of view for this UPI transaction alone?
Yes, this is what I mentioned about this, the direct economies of scale, right? Where the entire consumption option, I mean, I deal with this in thermonomics itself. where we talk about the role of cultural norms in driving consumption activities. So, for example, the finance minister gave a tax cut a couple of weeks back in the budget for a lot of middle class, exempting a lot of people to not pay taxes. So, what do people do with that money? You either pay it off for debt, or you pay that money for savings for the future, or you spend the money. So, these are events which trigger people to spend such amount of money. So
Yes.
the and this is highly inelastic demand, which means another 13 years, 14 years later, when the next Mahakumbh happens, the Kumbh Mela happens, you would still get all these people coming here irrespective of what is happening.
Of course.
So that ensures that there is sustained demand. And your point that most of these people would have spent some amount of money, and all of that is built around this ecosystem. And I think it's a huge opportunity to stimulate economic activity through this prism. And I think that's an important angle which I deal in my previous books in terms of economic history and its research, which is also relevant to today.
So you feel that this idea of the UP government or the central government that promoting dharmic areas, promoting Tirth Kshetra like Ayodhya, Kashi, Prayagraj, Mathura, that idea behind that to stimulate the economy and to increase the GDP and to generate more resources, employment, and so many circular things which are part of the economy in other way. So what's your point of view that government is successful in their in their own planning, or what extra they need to chalk out in their own agenda or strategy? What's your suggestion, being
See,
an economist?
you're right in saying that all this has a lot of. So one of my arguments is also to say that besides the religious, spiritual element of these events, the ecosystem creates an economic potential around these units, whether it's temples or whether it's basically the dharmic ecosystem. You can call it the dharmic temples, or you can call it a massive event like the Mahakumbh, for example. So this potential is something that if you do it in a much more systematic manner, you could tap significantly. So, for example, even the Mahakumbh, from a business point of view, you are having a market of 400 million people in a space for 45 days. Imagine you want to sell a particular product. There is no greater market in a particular space such as this.
True.
So, I think in that angle, policymakers should look at it in a much more systematic manner. So now everything happens in an ad hoc manner. So it has to come together in a systematic manner, and then target some of these, events and try to boost the economic scale. Because one major advantage is a lot of this is decentralized activity.
Ah,
Prayagraj is a tier 2 city which becomes world's, one of the world's most
center of attraction nowadays.
sought after cities for the 45 days.
Yeah, 45 days.
So it creates a decentralized model also, which is again more sustainable. So I think these are things that, that a lot of it is being done, but it could be done in a much more systematic manner also.
You mean to say that, as in your earlier expression, that those people who do not pay tax, they spend in these dharmic cities. So you feel that these dharmic areas and these festivals are the best opportunity to even ignite and pull out those money which they have kept somewhere else.
No, because, yeah, I'm not saying this is the ideal way, this is the only way we have to go, but I'm saying this is something that is the way of life. It's been happening for thousands of years. It's already a time-tested, experience. So might as well make the best use of it, from an economic standpoint. So I think there is a scope to understand this much better, because this way of life is only determining a lot of the economic choices that we do, and these platforms provide you the sort of base to do such a thing. So I think there's a lot of work being done. For example, if you compare the Mahakumbh in 2013 to now, it has really expanded in
Yeah,
scale. It has been looked at in a much
facilities,
more,
its scalability.
bigger angle. So that way, I think there is a genuine awareness among people that look, Bharat functions in its own way. It needs its own model to become Viksit Bharat, and these type of events highlight that even more. So I think I would say that this is something definitely policymakers need to look at it in a much more detail and do it in a much more rigorous manner, irrespective of who's in power or not. For example.
You are based out in US, out of this country. How do you perceive this Kumbh Mela, these festivals of Bharat? What's your perception?
I mean, it is amazing, right? I mean, there is so much interest, so much. For example, I made this entire trip. I took 4 flights to come here uh, because, you
And
know,
what ignited you to come to this Kumbh Mela, despite all these news?
yeah, I mean, many things. I tried to come for the 2013 Mahakumbh, which I think happened in Haridwar. I could not make it at that time. So it's been always there within me for me to come here. But then you see so many common Aam Admis who walk from states, who walk from, thousands of kilometers to come here. That is a
Having kids and gutteries onto the head.
that is inspiration,
Yeah.
right? So I was lucky to be here, and it's a great experience. I mean, I think one should, if anyone has to understand the Bharatiya parampara and its traditions, there's no better place than probably seeing the Mahakumbh, because it is the integration of everything in one place.
Yes, that's why. How do you see this integration? You talked about the integration. How do you see the integration of technology, AI, and many more advanced tools in execution of this Mahakumbh Mela?
Yeah, it is again, they've taken a notch level above in terms of technology. I see so many AI, related discussions here.
Counting of footfalls.
Correct. And the entire drones, in
Uh,
terms of people and all that. So all that is very
this was the drone
interesting.
Kumbh, I guess so.
Correct. So all that is very interesting and worthwhile. And I think more and more people, especially universities abroad, are coming and understanding and exploring the Mahakumbh. So I think that's a very, very good sign. And of course, Indian universities need to do more. The entire IKS unit, for example, needs to focus a lot on the Mahakumbh.
Yes.
I think more research needs to come out on a lot of these issues. So yeah, I think I would say the Aam Aadmi's bhakti and its uh, and their relentless dedication to Dharma is probably the inspiration for well-to-do people like us to come and talk about it.
Of course, and what message would you like to convey before leaving this Kalakumbh Pandal?
Yeah, the message is this needs to be happening much more for all the other kumbhs, that we need to do it at this scale or bigger, and get more common people involved in these ideas, and it also provides them uh, sort of an awareness that they are also contributors to the economic activity and to Viksit Bharat, because they are the ones, and if they don't consume, you're not going to get the economic pie to expand. So I just hope this gets better and bigger the next time round also.
Which festival you would like to put in the yardstick of this Mahakumbh?
It's very difficult. It's probably the most unique event I have been to, for example, and I think there is no yardstick for the Mahakumbh. It is its own yardstick.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. You took us time for us. We are really very honored and humbled to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste.